The year is 2012. Intel launched their all-new i5 3570 and 3570K on a 22 nanometer process. For a total of $213, this was a pretty good deal back then, with 4 cores and 4 threads at 3.8 gigahertz. So I figured we should honor this dirty old bastard by sticking it in a machine with an RTX 3090 and testing it in some modern games. During the making of this film, this 3570K died. So before I jump into the benchmarks, I was running this system completely normal, and all of a sudden it just turned off.
Excuse me, what the fuck?
I changed all the parts out, did a little troubleshooting, and found that this 3570K actually shit the bed during this recording. So I swapped it out for a 3570 non-K, so there are going to be some little differences here and there, but overall they perform pretty much identical. Well, let's get into the benchmarks. Look at that screen tearing. Oh my god. That was good. Alright, jumping into Call of Duty Roman numeral 2. So I want to say one thing right out of the gate. I have tried playing around with the settings in this game. I'm going to leave it on Ultra for now. We're running at 1440p. This is only a 60 Hz refresh rate screen. There's two things I want to say about having an older CPU like this. First of all, the compiling of shaders took almost 3 hours to finish. And the overall experience is pretty bad. So, as you can tell, we're running around 45 FPS. There's a good chance that I'll actually do pretty okay, even though the game is running terribly. And that's because Call of Duty is a bunch of,
Oh, the worse you are, the bigger the hitbox seems to be. And when you're doing very well, the smaller that hitbox gets.
So Call of Duty recently was caught basically manipulating their game code so that players who are better have a smaller hitbox and players who are worse get a larger hitbox. I'll throw up some of those images on the screen. So personally, I won't be playing this anymore, even for fun, just because now I know it's a rigged game. So just for the heck of it, we're gonna jump back into graphics. I will show you guys the balanced preset, and we'll even drop this down to 1080p. All right, we're at 1080p. So even at 1080p, the frame rate has not changed at all. Even on the balanced setting, it's pretty much just hard bottlenecked. The 3090 is running at 33%, and the CPU is on average running at about 90 to 100%. Welcome to Cyberpunk. We are at 1440p. I turned this to all high settings, and then I turned off the FSR, and there's no DLSS on, and pretty much everything is set to the highest setting that's not ultra, and I'm using no ray tracing. Let's see how it performs. So again, we are averaging around 35 to 50 FPS. It's really stuttery. The CPU, once again, is maxed out at 100%. So it seems like we're kind of seeing the same thing over and over here. The CPU in particular cannot push any card over 50 FPS at this resolution or in these newer modern titles. All right, we're going to change the resolution to 1080p. And we'll even turn on the quality setting. So at 1080p with DLSS on quality, we're getting the same, if not worse, frame rate. So this is a pretty bad experience overall. I do not recommend. Moving on to The Last of Us. So we're using less than 8 gigs of RAM, which actually I've seen go up to 10. I have the graphics setting on high, but if we actually put it on ultra, it'll go right up to 9 gigs. So everyone worried about that 8 gigs of RAM on the new cards, totally valid. This is only 1440p, and the same thing will happen at 1080p. But anyways, for the sake of the 3090, let's keep it on high, and we'll get out of here. And as you can see, we're running at 30 FPS on a 3090 at 1440p. So this is pretty bad. This is not a very demanding area either, so the fact that it's still running this low is pretty concerning. When we get to a place like the forest or outskirts, it will be even worse. The other thing is, obviously, the CPU is being completely loaded at 100%, and the GPU is once again sitting below 50%. It's at 44% at the moment, and just the overall experience is just very stuttery. The latency is just terrible. I would not recommend the CPU in this game. For the sake of science, let's drop it down to 1080p and see what happens. Alright, I lowered these settings and we are at 1080p now. The latency has actually improved quite a bit, but the actual frame rate has gone nowhere. Alright, jumping into Red Dead Redemption 2. This is actually one of my favorite games of all time. We're going to try this on the ultra setting, pretty much everything as high as possible at 1440p. And yeah, let's see what happens. This game still looks so good in my opinion. This is actually the first time where we're breaking into that almost 60 realm, which is pretty nice. Actually very responsive, the textures are nice looking, and CPU is still, 90% and up. Oh wow, that was never mind, I spoke way too soon. Now we're dropping into the 40s and 30s again. Let's go take a look over the side here. Oop, don't die, horse. Well, at least it looks beautiful. So just like the other games we have tested, it pretty much just hangs around the 30 to 50 FPS range. Every once in a while, we'll break that 60 FPS range, which is amazing for that one split second it happens. But overall, another terrible experience. Lastly, we have Apex Legends, a game that might actually get over the 100 FPS. So I have everything on high, TSA-A on, we have NVIDIA Reflex on, VSync is disabled, and yeah, let's jump into the match.
And I suck at this game.
So surprisingly, this feels really good, actually. The latency isn't bad at all. A little screen tearing going on, but that's my screen itself. And this is definitely playable. It's probably the only game on the entire list that you could play. But Apex Legends is super lightweight and can kind of be played on anything, to be honest. I honestly really didn't know what to do here. I kind of just ran around the map for 10 minutes and tried to find somebody, but for some reason I kept getting in games that were completely empty, or people were so spread out on the map that I couldn't find anyone. Up next we have The Witcher 3, and I wanted to try this game simply because the time frame that this CPU came out was pretty close to when this game launched.
Wrong.
So I have all these settings on high. I'm noticing right now the computer is ramping up quite a bit. I turned ray tracing off, anti-aliasing, let's put that on. Let's do FXAA, dynamic resolution scaling off, and everything else pretty much the way it should be. Alright, at first glance it looks like we're a little bit above the rest of the games, but it's starting to feel a little choppy as we go. Let's go. Oh, yeah, flicking the camera around is pretty chaotic. The frame rate drops a ton. The frame rate spikes, and like the frame time, oh my god. Yeah, it's pretty rough. This is really, really bad. Another experience I would not recommend. So it seems like as you get into more dense areas, the frame rate starts to really chug. Let's see what happens if we put on DLSS quality. And absolutely nothing. Still stuttery, and still looks bad or worse than it did. So before we leave, let's check out the internals of this processor that died. I just ripped off the IHS shield, and you can now see where the CPU has cracked, and there's little flakes coming off. And yeah, this is looking pretty terrible. So thanks again for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.